And when people lie and when people bullshit and gaslight, it's more offensive now than it's ever been before because there's so much access to truth that it's just, you could see it now. If you're paying attention, if you're not a boomer who only reads the newspaper, you pay attention and you see it and you go, this is horse shit.
But it's like, I guess what bothers me is that the lies aren't sophisticated.
No.
I mean, I look back over my now sort of long life, and I'm recognizing all the times that I was lied to, but, I didn't know I was being lied to. They kind of pulled it off. Mm-hmm. There's something incredibly insulting and demeaning to tell me a lie when I know it's a lie, and I know it's a lie. We both know it's a lie, but you're demanding that I pretend to believe it?
Right.
What you're really saying is, I have no respect for you. You're like my dog.
Right.
You're a slave.
They're not the guy that everybody goes to. They're not Dave Attell. They're not the guy that everybody goes to see. They're not like Dave Attell's the guy that comics go to see when he's in town.
Yes.
Like he's a master. You watch him. He's Yoda. You're like, Jesus Christ. Like, how is he so good? Well, he's so good because he writes every day. Because he's sitting with fucking a pack of cigarettes and a cup of coffee every morning, writing things in a notebook. And he's practicing every day. He goes on stage constantly. And it's that Japanese term kaizen, where you take this one thing and you just refine it to its ultimate mastery. That's what he's doing. So these guys who pretend to be that and steal jokes and then they get caught, then their material drops off a cliff. It's so obvious because
they're frauds.
Yeah, also because the very thing that allows you to steal someone's jokes, that's an ego thing. That's I want the laughs. I want to be the man or the woman. I want to be the fucking one up.
Doing it. It's like a reverse meritocracy. It's only the most kind of pathetic power worshipers would ever do a job like that. And,
well, like critics.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Most critics want to be writers.
They're like the worst people. Just as people. Mm-hmm. Like, well, you've actually been in show business, so you've got a better experience with them, or you have a lot of experience with them. But I've known a lot of them who worked for magazines or newspapers that I worked for. And they're the kind of people who have a lot of cats and all the cats hate them. You know what I mean? They're just like the lowest. They all have some like sort of weird like wandering eye, and they're fat, and they're like super into porn, and totally isolated from everybody.
But even some really good religions have aspects of them that you could say were overall detrimental to the people that were
absolutely you could
encountered with them. Yeah. I think that kind of thinking, I think cult thinking, whether it's Scientology or whether it's Christianity, or there's like a type of thinking, or whether it's woke. Woke is clearly a cult. It's a mind virus. And I think that it's so trite to call it that now. It's like whatever this thing is, this leftism, this Marxist sort of ideology that's waving its flag and indoctrinating people in this country. It's very similar to all kinds of religions. It's very similar to fundamentalist religions that have always existed, in that everybody has to believe very specific things and you can't differ. You can't differ from the doctrine. And
here's another way to think about it that I've been meditating on this a lot. Yes, religion, politics, they're all kind of melding. It's hard to know where one ends and another begins.
Right.
So maybe a simpler and more useful way to think about it is truth or falsehood, lying or honesty. Mm-hmm. Maybe just assess everything that way. Is someone lying?
Right.
I don't care what your justification for it is. Lying about vaccines. They've lied a lot about vaccines. And they've done it, I think, in most cases because they feel like they're serving some greater good.
Right. Like that's the narrative, right?
Right. We can't tell people that there are vaccine injuries because they won't get vaccines, which are good for a big population. I understand the thinking. But how about this? You can't participate in lying. Yeah. You can't lie.
You can't lie. And you can't.
Period, though. You can't lie about anything. Just don't lie about anything. Try to tell the truth all the time. If you can't say something that's true, just don't say it.
Right.
You're not required to say everything you think, obviously, and you shouldn't say everything you think. But you should never lie. And if you just stick with go there, be in the briefing room, the former Kennedy swimming pool, and the first thing you know, I mean, I was never a White House reporter, but was a reporter, so I would go to them occasionally. And the first thing you notice is how impressed all the correspondents are to work there. I work at the White House. Work at the White House. Got my hard pass. And then the distance between that little credential they were so proud of and the reality of their lives was like insane. Like they're in this tiny little room. They're being treated with total contempt by the White House staff, who thinks they're just fucking animals. You know, it's like, shut up. They're eating out of vending machines. And this was a different time, right? Mm-hmm. So like when I was working as a journalist in Washington, like we went out to lunch every day at like a good restaurant and charge it to the company. And like with your sources, we're like, we had lunch every single day like civilized people. I don't even think that exists in the world anymore, where you had time for lunch, where you weren't just so under the gun from your corporate masters that you had to like get back to work.
Right.
But
right. Always.
What makes it particularly galling and hard to live with is when you call that system a democracy.
Right.
That's too dishonest for me. I would much rather live in a monarchy where everyone thinks the king has been assigned by God to rule over us and his whims are law. And, you know, that makes sense. I don't like it, but at least it has internal coherence.
Right.
When they stand up and pass a $60 billion funding bill for Ukraine, when 70% of the population doesn't want it, when they're ignoring the actual problems in our country, like the economy and the border, and they're hauling in Congress over the weekend to pass something that people don't want, while ignoring the things that people do want, and if they do the same kind of thing again and again for like 50 years, and they call it a democracy, that will drive you insane.
Yeah.
Because it's just too dishonest. Why not just say, we don't give a shit what you want. We are terms. But if I get another fucking lecture from Joe Scarborough about defending democracy, when this is not a democracy, it's not even a close approximation of a democracy, then I'm going to go crazy because I just can't deal with the lying.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. What's interesting is that there are people saying that now. And I think that's a relatively new thing in terms of mainstream media. And I consider what you do on X mainstream media. I mean, this is what we're on right now is essentially mainstream media. It used to be, you could call it, there's corporate controlled media.
I agree.
And that used to be mainstream media. Mainstream media used to be CNN. It's not really anymore. Mainstream media is what, in terms of the volume consumed, more people are consuming things on Twitter, on X, than there are on anything else. Did you see that conversation that AOC had with that man they brought in for the Biden case, and they were talking about what crimes, and she was like grilling this guy. What crimes did you see Joe Biden? Did he steal anything? Did he steal bread? Like I forget what she said, and he was trying to explain what they were, RICO crimes, and she was saying RICO is not a crime.
I saw
it's
this.
a category of crime. Like okay, all right. But it's like,
tell that to the Genovese family.
Not only that, it's so dumb to say that publicly, like, and say it with confidence, and to tell a person.
That's the thing. The marriage of ineptitude and high self-esteem is,
it's
really
funny.
the marker of our time. It's like, I have nothing against dumb people at all. My dogs are dumb, and I love my dogs. No, I'm serious. I don't think God cares about your intelligence, right? Only people care.
That one of the real problems with joke thieves is when they get caught and then they have to write their own material. And the problem is they don't understand the language. They just know how to say the sounds. Like if you told me what to say in French, I can't speak French, but if you told me what to say and I practice it and I said it right, you would think, wow, that guy fucking speaks French.
Yes.
So that's what comedy's like. So if you got a guy who knows how to repeat other people's jokes, but he doesn't know how to create them. See, comedy's one of the rare things where someone... Like you get a guy like Shane Gillis, that guy writes his own stuff, he edits it, he thinks it out in his head, he performs it, he produces it, he changes the order of things.
I love that.
It's a complete. Everybody does it pretty much the same way. There's a few guys that hire writers, and that's honorable. There's nothing wrong with hiring a writer, and it gives jobs to other comics because some comics are just really good writers and they're not so good at performing. Like Chris Rock would do this thing where he would hire comics and they didn't write the jokes for him, but they would be like guys he would bounce stuff off. So he would have his ideas, he would go on stage, and then after his set, they would all meet and they would talk about the set. And, you know, guys would have taglines like, you could say this, oh, great, and they write that down, they're adding. So it's a collaboration. So you have the master, you have Chris Rock, who is so open-minded and intelligent and humble that he brings in other masters and says, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I could change. Tell me what I could make better.
Good for him.
And they work together. And then there's people that have people that are essentially ghostwriters. They hire comics to write jokes for them, and they pretend they're theirs. And they don't really write them at all. So that's another level, which is also honorable.
Does anyone who does that get successful?
I don't know. Not top shelf. They get close. They do well.